Okay, so today I'm gonna be talking about my homelessness because I noticed that every time I tell a story, I keep referring and coming back to the homeless part, So I'm like, why not just talk about it now and explain and all of this? So the definition of homelessness, you have, I think it's like Wikipedia that really explains this, that there are levels to this, especially in this day and age. Like when you're thinking about homelessness, it's not your traditional old school, dirty and messy and living on the streets, like it's a spectrum, basically. I'm just gonna share a little bit of my experience. So I would say like the main reason for me ending up homeless, and this is me taking accountability, okay? So it's not being like, oh, pity party, everything happens to me. No, I take accountability, and I would say that the main reasons for me being homeless, what I noticed, like when I went back and really thought about it and went through it and all of this, is that I went through like a mental burnout, like this happens to people that are, it can happen to anybody, but if you are a so-called high achiever, and you don't have people, like you're not used to having people to depend on, you basically do everything all the time, like you are the anchor to not only yourself, to like people around you. And even that anchor need an anchor sometimes, and when you don't get that, you get like a burnout, you just completely shut down, and for me, I was mentally burned out because it was so many events that was being thrown at me at one point. And this was fresh in the beginning of this so-called spiritual warfare or whatever that I'm going through. So I didn't know anything, and I felt like, wow, I'm turning mad for real. It's like I couldn't explain this with words, it was so absurd. So I would say like it was a mental breakdown that I went through during that time. That was one of the real main reasons. I was basically being excluded from society, and like I said in another video, like human beings, people, we are not meant to be alone like that, and when you are part of people, part of a so-called group society, but you're not in it like that, like I don't know how to explain that feeling, it's like it's worse than being excluded. Do you understand? So I understand why some people choose to live off grids and become homeless or whatever, because you have some people that actually choose this lifestyle. It doesn't happen to them, like they feel like that works for them. Beside the burnout, what made me get into this homelessness or end up in this homelessness, it was basically, like I said, with the so-called spiritual warfare. I heard some people talk about that I didn't have long time to live. And like now, with a little bit meat on my bones, I understand that people have this theory with the 3-in-1 souls in one body, active at different times. So I'm starting to understand that it may not have been me they meant, it may have been whatever that's connected to me, that okay, your time is limited, so you gotta bounce soon and leave this girl alone and whatever. But you see, I was the shield, I'm the main person, like I'm the whatever. So whatever you have to say to anybody, it will come through me first. Do you understand? Or I will hear it too, I will notice it too, I will see it too. And I don't think a lot of people were thinking about that in the beginning. So I heard stuff like, yeah, you're not gonna live too long. And I heard something about heart attack, somebody having like a bad heart and they would die from a heart attack. Yeah? And that's somebody being me then. So when I kept hearing this often, and I went to different so-called sangomas, you call them, spiritualists, and I was trying to get some kind of guidance, some kind of something, like just tell me what's going on, what do I need to do, um, and I just figured at that point, like when they say like, what would you do if you knew that you only had like 24 hours left to live? Like, how would you spend your 24 hours? And most people, if you ask them, they would do everything that they have been afraid of doing. They would skydive, they would ask somebody out that they really were fancying, they would try food that they would do basically everything that they've been hesitating, and other people would say like, no, I would just relax, I would just be at home chilling and just wait and take it as it comes. But I would say the majority would do number one, live out their fantasies basically. So that's what I did. I felt like if I don't have a long time to live, and I wasn't even 30, I was like, I don't know, 20, in my 20s, mid 20s or whatever. And I felt like, you know what, if I'm gonna so-called die young, let me just experience life. Like, I always wanted to travel, see the world, but I've been like this good girl my whole life. Like, not good like that, but I mean like good in the sense of, I will talk about this in another video, that when you grow up with a certain type of individuals, family members, circumstances that is unfavoring, you become very determined to be like, I want to be the opposite of these people. If these people thought that the sky was beautiful and they admire that, I will be a ground person, and and just basically do the opposite of what these people did, and it comes sometimes to a level where it gets too much, it is too much, it's too intense, it's too black and white. You're trying to disassociate from these people so much, so I felt like growing up, I would just share a little bit of that. Like, when it came to money, finance, and stuff like that, my family, relatives, especially from my mom's side, they had a hard time with a lot, I'm telling you. So if we were in some kind of, what do you call this, generational curse or something, I would say the generational curse was not only like our love lives, that none of these people stay married or happily married and all of this stuff, but I would say it's the financial part too, the hard time getting money, but the even harder time to keep the money. So I saw this early with all of them, and I was like, I would be damned to end up like you guys, so I'm gonna just do the opposite of whatever you guys are doing. So as soon as I got my salary, I paid my rent, my electricity, I put some money on the side, and whatever I had left, like that money would go to, the extra stuff, fixing my hair, my nails, whatever, but I wouldn't indulge in everything like some of my family members did. As soon as the money from whatever came in, it was gone within 2-3 days, because they just spent. So I have always been like that, like pay my bills sometimes, and as soon as I get one little notice of something like this, you need to pay it within 24 hours, I get stressed as fuck, So if I would live in a place like America, Canada, where credit score is very important, I think like I would have a very high credit score, because I was that like But the bad side with that, or the downside, is that you don't really live in the moment, really, So I couldn't see like, how am I gonna afford to travel and do all of this stuff that I do want to do, Like, I do get money, I have like a decent salary, but somehow, like, I can't, do you understand? Like, I couldn't grasp how I would make that dream come true with this budget that I had, basically. But when I came to that phase of my life where I was like, if I don't have long time to live, then fuck this and fuck that and fuck all of it, So I managed to fix money. We don't have to talk about how, but it was legal. It was. I managed to fix some money, and I just went bananas, basically, I went to different countries, different cities, and tried different activities, and like I did everything, basically. and a little bit more. And the thing is, like, I was living on the budget still. Like, I just want to remind people of that. I was still living on the budget. Like, when I travel, I don't live in hotels most of the times. I live in what you call like a hostel. You live with a lot of people. Because for me, I know that the most important thing is that I have somewhere to lay my head and take a rest and shower. Those two. That's it. Most of the time, if I eat outside, you know, the markets, and I like local food like that, you know. I don't travel to another country to just eat like burgers and whatever you have at home, you know. I want to try their local cuisines and stuff. So I was living very cheap, eating cheap, you know. So I would say most of the money went to the flights, basically. The flights and like transport, I would say. That was the most expensive. Everything else, you know, you fix somehow. So that was the second reason. So like I said, the first reason was burnout, mental burnout in my case. And the second reason was thinking that I didn't have long to live. So I just like, you know, fuck it, you know, let me just splurge. I would also say that I had something that could resemble like a midlife crisis. Like I said, I was only like in my mid-20s, early 20s, you know. But I would say that I already saw people around me that I grew up with starting to climb the so-called corporate ladder, and I felt so far behind somehow, you know, like, and I was starting to just reevaluate my life and where I was, and you know, like, I started to get a so-called midlife crisis, basically. You know, and you know, like, everybody deals with their midlife crisis different ways. My way was just living like there was no tomorrow, basically. One of the other reasons that I became homeless was that I had never been in a situation like that ever, and I had never known anybody that been in a situation like that. So, you know, like, the common sense of it, that you have shelters and you have a lot of organizations that helps people, I didn't know any of it. I'm not kidding with you, you know. And that would be one of the main reasons why I was stuck in homelessness for as long as I was. It was the ignorance of basically help, that it existed, you know. It's sad, you know, because help was very close most of the times when you think about it, but I made it so much more complicated for myself, and it is what it is. So, but I would say that the different type of homelessness that you have, if I'm just gonna generalize it, is of course the one that most people know, that is because, or is inflicted because of some kind of addiction. Alcohol, drugs, gaming, whatever. Some kind of addiction makes you just ignore like your responsibilities, basically, you know. That's one of the types of homelessness. And then I would also add something called gentrification. Like, gentrification is basically like, you know, like, they have it all over the world. Like, I see it everywhere. Like, when I've been traveling, I've seen it everywhere. It's like, you have a neighborhood where people have been living for decades, centuries. Like, it's been generational. Families have been living there for so long, you know, and they have their price and everything. Like, it works for them, you know. But somehow these big corporate whatever, they find like, oh, let's just, you know, open a mall here instead, or change like the buildings a little bit so other people will be interested to move in, and you know, and then they would reason up, or they would my English, they will basically make the house pricing unaffordable for the people that already lives there, you know. So they have to move out eventually, and the people that move out, like, they will have a hard time finding something else, that is similar, you know, or anything. Like when I went to Los Angeles, I've been to Los Angeles 2 times. I can say that when you come to Los Angeles, I don't want to be like that, but it's a certain group of people that is living the so-called Californication kind of, you know, that kind of lifestyle. And those people, they are not so-called natives from there, you know, like some of them, they don't even understand English. And these are the people that are living in the so-called penthouses and, you know, all of this stuff. And you will have people that have been there since the 60s, 70s, or whatever, squeezed inside one apartment just to manage, or live out under a bridge, you know. I'm telling you, like when I was in Los Angeles, like this was my second time when I came. I got a job offer at a hostel. So these people were so nice. Like, I want to share a story about that. We'll see if I do it in the future. We'll see. But these people were so nice. They offered me a job. But I had like a work visa, so I didn't want to screw my chances of being able to travel there in the future. So long story short, I met a lot of people that came to this hostel, not only living there, but you know, we had services like, it was like homeless people that came to wash their clothes, came to take a shower. Do you understand? And some of these people, I spoke to them, and it was a specific guy I remember, like he had opened his own company. And I think it was kind of fresh like that, you know? And he had the whole, like he had like a, not a suit, what do you call it? A shirt and some kind of vest or something on. And he had like his van, like a van parked like not so far from the hostel. And I was like, wow. Like if I saw him walking the street, I would never in a million years think that he was homeless or anything like that, you know? And speaking to him, like it wasn't any addiction, any gambling, anything like that. It was just like whatever money he got in and whatever money that was asked of him in that neighborhood, in that city, in that region, was like, it was not equal. It was not adding up, you know? So it is crazy. The housing prices are going up, but the salaries are still stagnant, you know? And then you have my generation, millennials. I would call us sofa surfers or couch surfers or whatever you call it. You know, like you move out of your family home, and here in Europe, Sweden, we have something called like a queue system. You have to stand in line. And the person that have collected most points and been in this line for long can eventually get like an apartment. And it is your apartment, like you get like a lease or whatever, but it's not officially yours. Like it's not bought like that, you know? And it's so sad, like the whole queue system, like it's supposed to be fair, but it's so weird because like to get like a decent apartment, you have to be in that line for 10 plus years. 10 plus years if you want a decent apartment, you know, for a decent price and all of this stuff. It is crazy. So my generation, I would say a lot of us are in between homes, you know, like you know, have roommates and live in a student condo. You will crash in different people's sofas and, you know, being like a vagabunda, you know? So that is one type of homelessness, you know? You don't have like a firm address, basically, that you can call your own like that, you know? One of the reasons for homelessness can also be, in my professional whatever, is that some people can actually put you in those situations. Like I have so many stories to share when it comes to that, not personally like that, but I remember a friend that I used to have, her aunt, this aunt was, oh, I'm telling you, she took loans in her name. She bought like an expensive camera and took like a payment plan, but she didn't pay it off. So it ended up going to some kind of, you know, like IRS thing. And my friend was like, even before the age of 18 or something, she ended up on this so-called blacklist, you know? And when you end up on that list, you need to wait, I think, is it 5 years or something, 10 years before the little mark is gone. And during that time, you can't take any credit card stuff, you can't take any loans, you can't even get an apartment, you know, because most of the people, they require you to be clean, you know. And I felt so bad for her, you know, that she ended up in that messy situation, not because of anything she did. It was just because she trusted her aunt with her personal number or whatever, you know, being kind basically. And then you have another story with a woman that when I was in Canada, I was homeless in Canada as well. I'm telling you, I've been homeless all over the world. Like, I would try to somehow summon that up, but this lady, what was her name? It's not important. I don't think my YouTube channel is big like that to feel like I would out somebody's name. But you don't know, maybe in the future it will grow or something. So I don't want anybody to sue me, you know. But anyhow, her name is not important, but she was an elderly woman that was in her late 50s, almost 60s, I would say, that came from Vietnam, I think. And she lived in this shelter that I was living in as well. And I remember that I spoke to her a lot because we were the only foreigners in this shelter. And we spoke a lot, and she told me the story of how she became homeless. And it was basically like when she divorced her ex-husband, he basically took everything from her, the house, the everything. Like, he was the gold digger, you know. And in her so-called community, what she was saying is that, yeah, a lot of people talk about, you know, the foreigners help each other. You don't see a lot of foreigners being homeless because they always have support system, you know. And she was like, on some level it's true, but on other levels is not true. And she was like, in her case, her community, what you call it, they excluded her, you know. They felt embarrassed, like, look at her, you know, she's coming here to Canada, she has so much opportunities to make it and all of this stuff, and she ends up being homeless, needing help, needing money. So they felt ashamed of her, you know. And she felt like she didn't want to, I feel bad for her. I'm not kidding with you. And I agree with her 100% when it comes to what she's saying, because I later on experienced the same stuff, you know, that my own community would be like, oh, how embarrassing, you know, like, we African women, we are strong, you know. Like, I will tell you a story. This was when I was homeless in France, in Paris. I tried to find a job because I know how to do hair a little bit. I know how to do braids and stuff like that. So I went to different hair salons and basically tried to show them my skills and said, like, instead of me sitting here begging for money and doing all of this extra stuff, let me just come in here a few hours, help do some hair, you know, I can finish the braids or whatever, and I get money like that, you know. And these people were lecturing me. Like, this was a big hair salon and all of these women were busy making people's hair, and you already feel embarrassed. You're coming in and it's a lot of people, a lot of women sitting there, and they started like, oh, you know, we African people, we strong, and we black women, we strong, you know, and we don't beg and we don't do stuff like this, because they had seen me outside with my sign begging prior. And I was like, yeah, okay, but this so-called strong African woman is coming here and trying to get some help from other strong African women. So can you help me or not? You know, they were just lecturing me, you know. So I didn't get anything, any job, any offering, and anything like that. And I won't forget that. I won't forget that, because I was like, wow, sometimes it be your own people. I would say the absolutely main reason for homelessness is that you have not only one, but usually 2 or 3 factors that occurs at the same time. Let's say you get fired, but you still have your place to live. and then rent is due or something, you know, and then it's like, it gives you two kind of stress. It's like, oh shit, I need to find a job. Oh shit, I need to pay my rent within so many days. If not, I will get evicted. You know, like if you have two or more of these stuff happening at the same time, I don't care how strong you are mentally or whatever, spiritually, like it will get to you somehow. Like you will be, that shit, you will be burned out. Do you understand? You will be burned out when it happens, like a train, like just pop, 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 no pauses, you know. It's too much, you know. You one person, like one problem at a time, por favor, huh? So during the homelessness, one thing a lot of people don't know, like I said, you don't always notice that people are homeless. And in my case, many people around me, they were unaware, I think. I actually did work when I was homeless. I managed to find a job. This was a, how do you say, like a telecom job. Basically, you're sitting and selling stuff from the phone. So I found a job like that. I got laid off because I got into an altercation with one of my coworkers. It was not even the manager. It was a coworker that felt the need to, I think she was suffering from something called Napoleon syndrome or Napoleon complex. You know, like when you feel very little and you need to make other people feel even smaller so you can come up a little bit, you know? Like I had a hard time with coworkers like that. They need to stay in their lane. You know, you have some coworkers that will have like a little bit higher title, like a little bit more task, you know, like they will be like a vice whatever, or in charge of whatever, you know. They will have some kind of something like that. And for those people, I respect you guys, and if you tell me that I need to do something or whatever, I would absolutely do it. But when we are on the same level, we get the same salary, we do the same job and everything, and you're gonna walk around like an extra supervisor and tell me what to do and not to do, like, I'm sorry, you can call it ego or whatever, but I'm not dealing with that very well, you know. So she and I went into a small altercation, and the thing is, like, my temper was already very low, you know, because she didn't know this. Before I came to work, I had actually been sleeping in a garage, you know, like a real garage where you have your cars and stuff like that. And I always had my sleeping bag, so I didn't have to be dirty like that. So I had just been sleeping in a garage with, you know, that smell with gasoline and everything like that. And I went to like a swimming, what do you call it? A swimming house, like a pool place, you know. I snuck in to take a shower before I could go to work, basically. And you come to work, and I remember, like, I had like a big backpack with all of my stuff, and I hid it under the stairs, like the last floor in our job. I hid it under the stairs, and I came in, you know, dressed whatever regularly, and she started to mess with me, you know. And I'm like, this is why I keep saying, and a lot of people have been saying this, don't mess with people. You don't know who you meet. They can be literally on the last whatever when you meet them. You don't know where they have been sleeping the day before. You don't know if they have been fighting with somebody or somebody died or whatever. You just don't know. So don't be an ass, basically. But I did work during the homelessness. A little bit, and I tried to find different jobs everywhere I was, like I said, with the hairdressing stuff. When these people didn't want to hire me for the hairdressing, I was like, let me just do it myself. So I had like a cardboard paper carton or whatever, carton a box, and I wrote on the box like how much did I take for each braid. I was like, it was not much. Let's say it was like was it €1 or something like that, €1 per braid or something, very cheap, you know, because I just wanted to have money to buy food, you know, to be able to go to a place where you could wash yourself and stuff like that, you know. So I remember, like, I tried to hustle. Like, it was literally like the movie with Will Smith, Pursuit of Happiness. Like, you try everything, literally, and you don't have a lot of energy, because you don't get your 8 hours of sleep. It's most of the times where I was sleeping, like, it was always somebody that was coming and bugging me, like either a guard or a regular person, like, you can't be sleeping here, you gotta go. But they didn't care where I went, they just wanted me off the place. And it was crazy, bro. And what I noticed during the homelessness also, it was that a lot of people, they talk down on you. Like, people, somebody said this, people will show you respect depending on how you dress, depending on what kind of title you have. Somebody said, like, some people, they ask you what you do for a living so they would know how much of their respect they're gonna give you. And I agree with that. Like, you would see how people talk to each other, and as soon as I come and I just ask like a regular question, like, do you guys know what time it is? Because I didn't have a mobile phone when I was homeless. I sold everything just to get some money to survive, basically. And they would just look at me like I was like some kind of disease walking on two legs. And you did, of course, have some good people. I will talk about them, I will shine more light on them, of course. But it was a lot of fake people, like fake help, like, especially like if you are homeless like a woman. I think it's a big difference from being homeless as a woman and being homeless as a man. Like, men, they struggle in another way. Like, society is not so fast to give them handouts and help like that. It's not that, it's not often a man will meet a woman that will be like, oh, come to my place and take a shower and sleep, and she will try to take advantage of him. That doesn't happen a lot. So in that case, they are disadvantaged. Like, when men get homeless and they have to come back to so-called reality or whatever, it is a little bit harder for them, I would say. But I would say, like, during the actual homelessness, it's much harder for a woman, I would say. If you're thinking about the safety part and just like how people can take advantage of you, if you're thinking about that sense, it is not equal at all. I had a lot of people that wanted to help, but that help was always connected to something. Like, I will share like a funny story. This was a guy that he was an African guy, actually. I remember, like, we started to talk, and the more we spoke, like, he noticed possibly that I was homeless or something, and I was very honest, so I think I mentioned it. And he was like, you know what, I don't want to see a sister, be in this position like this and yada yada yada, like, I don't live so far from here, come to my place, eat, take a shower, and all of this stuff. And I was looking at him, and I could see that it was something else too, that, nah, it's not just gonna be a shower and eat, like, this guy is gonna try something. But I was looking at him, like, his physique, his body and stuff like that, and I was like, I can't wrestle this guy. I can't wrestle this guy. Like, if he would try anything, like, I think I could take him out, So I was like, okay, you know what? Fuck it. I need to take a shower. Let's go to his place. So he had a motorcycle, or like, yeah, not motorcycle like that, but the small ones. And we went to his place, and I went straight to it. I was like, I jumped in the shower, and he was like, okay, I'm just going to the store to buy some stuff, so I'm coming back. So he left me in the apartment, and your girl was like, took her shower and did whatever she had to do, and then bounced. That's it. Because I was like, no, I would say information is key. If I had learned early on that they have like so-called day shelters, like, you have people that was sleeping in central stations and stuff like that. because it's literally like the movie Pursuit of Happiness. Like, it won't be enough beds, you know, in some of these shelters. It won't be enough beds, so they can't have any place to sleep over the night. So they will be awake the whole night in a bus station, in a central station, and early in the morning when the shelter opens, they need to be there, stand in line and get inside, and there you can get your shower, you can get a few hours of sleep, even breakfast sometimes, and like a goodie bag with lunch or something. Do you understand? And feminine hygiene stuff and all of this. I didn't know that these places existed. I really didn't know. Like, I was homeless, I would say, back and forth, but I would say like a good year, if you put it together. Like a good year I was homeless. So I experienced homelessness throughout the different seasons: winter, fall, summer. And of course winter is one of the worst, you know. Winters are one of the worst. Is comfortable. I was never comfortable, but made me okay with sleeping outside. Because like I said, like, I was one of these people, I snuck into different places, you know, like empty buildings, sometimes hotels, sometimes garage. And worst case scenario, if I didn't find anything and I was super duper tired, I would sleep under the sky, literally, and have the sky and the stars as my roof, you know. And I would say, like, it's a point where you're just giving up. You notice that you're not noticeable like that. You are walking ghost. People see you, but they don't see you, you know? And you just see no way out of this. You lack energy from not eating properly, not drinking properly, not sleeping properly, and you just give up, you know. So you think, like, if somebody would come and jump me right now, you're not even thinking about it. You feel like, oh, that would be a relief almost, because then you don't have to struggle the next day thinking about, how am I gonna survive today, how am I gonna find food, how am I gonna fix money, you know. So eventually you become numb, you know. And that kind of numbness, it is dangerous to become that numbness. I think that numbness is what keeps some of these people in homelessness for a long time, you know. They just giving up, basically. They don't see any way out of it. And I understand why many people would start some kind of abuse, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, because, like, you know, the alcohol, it keeps your body hot. So they drink to basically be able to sleep, you know, and just escape this reality that they're facing. Because that reality, it is, you know, it feels like being the game or the movie Resident Evil, you know, where everybody have died and you are alone, but you're not really alone, you know. That numbness, it got me to a level where I felt so invincible that I went from a so-called, you know, like, you have model citizens, you also have model homeless people, you know. They will follow the laws and the regulations, and they will do everything like accordingly to whatever, you know. They will be good, decent people, you know, even during the homelessness. And I was like that in the beginning. When you come out of the homelessness, it's a lot of stuff that changed, like your whole outlook to a lot of stuff. I never been a super materialistic person, you know, like hoovering stuff and just being a collector like that. I never been like in that case. But I noticed, like, after this homelessness, I'm very simple. Like, if you see my wardrobe right now, I'm always on the level of, like, if something would happen, I want to be able to fit everything in one, like, a medium-sized bag, basically. I don't want to have too much unnecessary stuff, basically. So you think more necessity, basically, you know, when it comes to everything from food, clothes, whatever. Necessity is key. Become a little bit stingy, you know. You become stingy, like, because you are so afraid to end up in that situation again. So whenever you get money, or anything good, you're not fast to just throw it away, you know. And when you go to the store and buy food, like you check the price, like you become very, like, you walk on eggshells basically, you know. I could say that I have been helping a lot more after this, a lot more. I remember a guy that I met during my homelessness. He was homeless as well, and I met him just a few months ago. He is still in the homelessness situation, and I was so determined to be like, you know what, I'm gonna help him, you know, I'm gonna get him out of this, you know. So, but he was, like I said, some people are okay with this situation, you know, like, I'm gonna try to come to that somehow. But some people are okay with the situation. But I remember I took him to, I live in a student apartment right now, so I'm sharing with another guy. But I have my little room and we are sharing kitchen and everything else. But he wasn't home then. So I decided to take this homeless guy to my place, and we washed his clothes, he took a shower, we cooked like real, because he's a vegetarian, you know. He's a vegetarian, and he's very, like, how would you say, for being somebody that's homeless, he has a lot of integrity, basically. It's certain stuff that he doesn't eat, certain stuff that he doesn't do, very like, da, da, da. So we cooked food together, and he slept in my place for like 2 days or something like that. And if I went to the store to buy something, food or whatever, I asked him, do you want something? And I even gave him like some pocket money and stuff like that. I'm not like, I basically did everything for him that I would want somebody to do for me, without any strings attached, you know, just a friend helping another friend, that's it. But when it came to that part where I wanted to take him to the social services and actually get him real help so he could have a place to stay and all, because this help is temporary, like I can't, you know, because I'm living with somebody else. Then he was like, no. Like, he had his reasons, but you know, you gotta respect that too. But I would say after the homelessness, it's a lot of plan B, C, the whole alphabet. You have a lot of plans. Like, I've been used to getting screwed over so many times when it comes to jobs and stuff, you know. People get me fired and lie on me. So I have like a rainy day kind of money on the side, you know. And so this is money that I use, like if I lose a job or whatever, I know that I have a little bit on the side, so I can still pay my rent, I can still buy food and stuff like that, you know. So it makes you wiser, you know. Struggle makes you wiser. It really does. And it humbles you. Like, I always felt that I was humble, but this humbles you on a whole nother level. Because like I said, in my case, I wasn't homeless because of drugs, alcohol, mental instability in any shape or form. I became homeless because, you would say, not taking care of my finances, of course. I take responsibility. And letting outside events affect my inside. So somehow mentally, but not like, you know, that kind of mental, you know. I was still functioning, you know, but I will tell you, it humbles you. Like, and when you see and you meet some of these people, some of them, they have good education, they had good jobs, titles, everything, you know, and they still end up in a situation like that, and you like, bruh. I was one of these people that said before, I would never, like, there's no chance that I would ever become homeless.
Never gonna catch me, no, 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 never gonna catch me.
I always had like savings, and I always had plan B and something, like, do you understand? I always had my shit together. So I was like, nah, I could never, you know? And now after going through it, I would just say to anybody out there, it doesn't matter. Like, I even heard like a crazy story, like, what's his name? The guy, MC Hammer. the guy that did the Can't Touch This, that song, he became homeless. Like after the hit songs, after the peak of his career, he became homeless. And then we have other stories. This is about an African guy that was a football player. His wife basically took custody of his kids and took his money and took his house, took everything from him. And he told the story. He ended up sleeping in different people's laundry rooms, and like he lost his contract, he lost everything, you know? And he had to come back to Africa and start from the beginning, basically from scratch. So you have a lot of like riches to rags stories like that. It is possible. I'm telling you, it is possible. Like I said, you just need 2 or 3 factors at the same time that knock you down, and it's like the wrong time, the wrong everything, and you there, you know? So make sure you're humble. Make sure that you're humble. Okay, so how did I take myself out of the homelessness? I started to meet people, you know, because one of the things with being homeless, you meet a lot of people, you have a lot of conversations, you know, you talk to a lot of people and they share a lot. That's actually, it's a plus, you know, it's a plus. But I met people that basically could help. They had concrete help. Like they gave you numbers, like call this place, go to this place at this time, and you will get this and you will get that. And do you understand? So when I started to meet these people, then I started to see all of the institutes that was available, basically, you know. So, and when you start to get in contact with these institutes, they have their contacts. Like if you need to go to the dentist or you need help getting financial help or whatever, so it's like a domino effect, you know. So everything else would just fall into place, basically. So I would say, like, yeah, I met the right people at the right place and right time. You just come to a point where you're just done with it, you know. Especially it's easier like if you had a so-called normal life before the homelessness, like you have been experiencing having your own home and everything like that. It's gonna come a time where you just fed up with being tossed around and people are looking at you and treating you like you are less than. You will just one day just be sick and tired of your own shit, you know. So that little epiphany, like it may come after a year for some people, after 10 years, but it will come, you know. Like you get sick and tired of your own shit. I got sick and tired of being sick and tired. I came to that point. I had some help from some people around me, because I got some help from social services, but I'm telling you, these people, oof, they are so messy. Like, I know it's not supposed to be easy with the social service thing, you know, with the coupons, the money, the whatever, it's not supposed to be easy. It's not, you know, so everybody just decide to not to work and go on welfare. I get it. But these people are doing it so very unnecessarily complicated sometimes. Like, I was so frustrated with these people. Like, it could be like, I was in one city and they were like, yeah, but your last address was the other city, you know, so you need to go to them to get help. And then you go to them and they're like, yeah, but you haven't been living here for so many years, so where were you the latest? Okay, so you need to go back, you know. And you keep running back and forth between institutes, and it's so degrading, you know. You get just sick and tired of it. So I decided that fuck it, I'm just gonna go back to school and I'm gonna take something that is short but will give some kind of outcome eventually. And that way I got my student apartment, I fixed the job, and I remember getting some help from a friend to pay my first rent. And just stuff like that, you know. So you need to have the right people around you, you know. And if you don't, like, you need to have your faith. I'm telling you, a lot of it. A lot of it. It's so sad how people like how you quickly adjust. Because I remember the first night as homeless, I wasn't even. My money was done. It was finished, and I had been living in a hostel before. I remember, and I was stressing because I was like, I know that this is my last week here. I don't have money for another week in this hostel. I barely have money to buy food, you know? And I was stressing and trying to fix money, you know, and all of this stuff. And I remember being so frustrated. I went to the bus station, to the central station, and I was just sitting there with my bag, because I had one bag. I was just sitting there and just thinking, like, how am I gonna do this? How am I gonna manage? And you know, time keep going. It gets dark outside and everything. And all of the so-called real homeless people, like the ones that are used to this, they start coming into the central station and you see them, you know? And I was just like looking at them like, what's going on, you know? Because I had never been so late at a central station, so I haven't seen that part, you know, where people come with their blankets and everything. So, no, I remember that one of them, like, they probably saw that I was new to this or something, so they came and spoke to me. It was another African guy, and we basically spoke the whole night. So I was awake the whole night. I was sitting there in the central station. So that was my first official homeless night. And I will tell you, you get used to this very quick. Like the human brain, the human body, like this social programming, it's crazy how quick people get used to certain situations, especially like bad situations. You know, if somebody would invite me to a castle and I would have a butler and everything like that, it would take months, if not even years, for me to adjust to that and be like, this is my place. Like, I literally have people working for me. But being homeless and sleeping on Central Station, like, it went quick to adjust to that. I will tell you that. Okay, so how can you help if you see a homeless person? I would say, just be a decent person. Do you understand? If somebody comes up and talk to you and you don't have the time to talk or whatever, just don't be so quick to just get away, you know? Because everybody needs somebody to talk to. So if you have that spare time where you can just sit with somebody and listen, you know, give some advice or whatever, do that. You don't know how much that will change somebody's day, or maybe spark that little change that they need. Do you understand? So I would say how you can help, like if you're not thinking about the financial part, just be a decent person, basically, you know? Like concretely, I would say inform people. Because a lot of these people that are homeless, they don't know what kind of help and institutions and stuff like that is out there, you know? So you have some organizations that will go out, they will have the vest and everything, and they will give out food and coffee and stuff like that. God bless you guys. Like, oh, I met so many of these people that came, and you know, they don't understand like how much that changed for somebody. Like, you haven't been eating the whole day, and then somebody comes, you know, and gives you a fruit and sandwich and fresh coffee or tea, like, and it's not always connected to, oh, do you want to come to our church? Like, do you understand? Don't use that to try to recruit people. I'm just saying, don't use that to try to recruit. But yep, so I saw this on YouTube, or maybe it was Instagram a few years ago. It was a lady that she made her own little bags, you know, little kits that she had in her car. And as soon as she saw a homeless person, she gave the homeless person this bag. And the bag basically sustained everything that you may need as a homeless person. So I would say, like, if you could do something like that, that would be awesome. You know, like, and one of the things you would have in this bag is, you know, those emergency blankets that are like silver or gold. They basically like shelter you and keep the heat, you know, like they usually, yeah, it's emergency blankets. They're not very expensive either, I know. So if you can get like emergency blankets of any sort, awesome. If you can get what do you call it, sanitary napkins, because I remember like I couldn't afford going to the toilet some of the times. I couldn't afford going to the bathroom, so I had to do my business outside. And as a woman with your period and everything, it was just messy. So I'm telling you, like, I always had like sanitary napkins, and this would be like to wash my face, it would be to wash downstairs and all of this stuff. So I would recommend like giving those, like a big pack of those, and just feminine hygiene stuff. So just trying to find like small stuff like that, and whenever you see a homeless person, give it to them, basically. I'm not afraid of getting into a homeless situation ever again, like knock on wood. But if I would ever find myself being homeless again, because you have people that go back and forth, and like I said, it's easy for anybody to end up there. It is. If I would ever find myself homeless again, I feel like I would be a little bit better equipped this time than the first time. And I will tell you, the worst thing is to be homeless in your own city, like where you grew up. And I remember like meeting an old friend from high school, and she was now a dentist, and she came with her fiance, and they had their bags, they were gonna travel like vacation somewhere, and I was sitting there with my big backpack in Central Station just waiting, and we started to talk a little bit, and I was just looking at her, and I was like, man, she and I used to be on the same level at one point. We graduated at the same time and all of this stuff. And I'm just looking like that could have been my life, So I'm telling you, like, it was easier being homeless abroad than being homeless where you grew up. No, so the places that I was homeless, it was basically all over Europe, more or less. All over Europe, more or less. And I would say, so people may think, okay, so how did you afford traveling if you were homeless? And I would say, like I said, I managed to fix money different ways, either through begging or through, like these bottles. If you collect enough of these bottles, you get a decent sum of money or whatever. So I managed to fix money somehow, but it was not like enough like that. So I took the bus, like, especially during the summer. So I remember being Spain, Portugal, France, like that area, and I took the bus in between, back and forth. Sometimes I even hid inside the bus. I didn't pay for the bus ticket. I just snuck in, because like I said, homeless people are invincible sometimes, So I was like, let me just use my invincibility as a superpower, or whatever you call it. The saying they have, misery loves company. When it comes to this homelessness, it is so spot on. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. There was a point where I managed to fix my life again, and I found a job, and I started to work and study and all of this stuff. But it's, how do you say, it's a full month. It's like 30 days you have to wait until you get your first salary. So it was a point where I was still broke. I had roof over my head. I had appointments, stuff to do, and I was scheduled for different stuff. Like, everything was starting to roll, but I was still broke. Like, I was broke, like had zero in my account, literally. And I remember that I still had to go to some of these so-called day shelters, to just like a soup kitchen or whatever you call it, just to eat and get like basic necessities, basically. And you had some of the other women that came often to this place. They're very curious, because, like, this is what I feel. That's why when people gossip, I often think about this situation. I think like you cannot be very happy with your own situation. Like you can't have a lot going on for yourself if you are so invested in somebody else's business, basically. And I've seen proof of that, you know. And this is like an escapism. Like you're trying to escape your shitty reality by intervening in somebody else's so-called shitty reality. Do you understand? So these ladies, they were all up in everybody's business, you know, gossiping and talking back and forth and all of this stuff. The ones that were sober, of course. And I had a few of them that were they were asking me like, why are you still here, you know? And they even went to the people working in these so-called day shelters, soup kitchens, and I overheard one of the ladies saying, so I didn't know that you guys had that kind of budget, you know? So people that are working and have jobs can still come here and get a free meal, you know? And I know that she was referring to me. We had another set of women that also did the same as me. They were working and stuff like that, but the money didn't add up, or they had other expenses that basically ate all of the money. Like it was something, you know? But for my case, I don't like pettiness like that. When I hear it or something like that, I try to address it directly. I'm gonna stop with that because every bullshit doesn't need a reaction. Anyhow, so I addressed it. I spoke to this lady and I said, listen, I'm waiting for my first salary. So as soon as my first salary comes in, you don't have to see my face here anymore. It's not like I wanna come to these places, do you understand? Like, in the future, I want to work in a soup kitchen myself. I want to volunteer and do all of this stuff. Do you understand? Because I have experience from living in that. But I don't know. I'm telling you, it is not hierarchy, but it is some kind of jealousy, some kind of undercover competition going on in the so-called homeless community also. Like, it is like that in society. You know, everybody's trying to climb something. But I would say, despite this, I would say that majority of homeless people that I met are so down to earth, like one of the coolest, chillest, like most decent human beings that you might ever come across, literally. It's just a small percentage, and I feel like these are often the ones that, I don't know, they got put in this situation maybe because, I don't know, whatever, you know? But most of the homeless people that I met, I mean, I had some good conversations and I got some great tips. Like, these people have seen life up, down, turn around, like they have seen everything, you know? So if you want to ask somebody about life, like, these are your people to go to, you know? Let's pray that I never have to go through anything like this again. But if I have to, Lord, I am prepared. I just want to end this video by saying that one of the girls that was working as a receptionist at a so-called shelter or institution for homeless people that I met a lot during that time, she and I, just like less than 6 months to be correct, because she started after me. And I know that she was so shocked. Like, I saw her, she saw me, and I recognized her, but I couldn't like put where I had seen her, you know? I have a good facial like recognition, whatever. Like, I remember faces, you know, I never forget faces. But names and stuff like that is a little bit harder. But I remember that she looked at me like, I can't figure out, you know? And me, I'm not ashamed of this homelessness whatsoever. Like, I mention this a lot, you know? And I think like if I get any opportunities in the future to do something, I would probably be some kind of advocate or trying to help in any shape or form, you know? Because I feel like you don't get put into situations like that without some kind of, you know, like it has some meaning behind it. Like, it was divinely orchestrated for you to learn something so you could benefit others, you know? That's what I feel. But anyhow, this girl, like I said, she was a receptionist, and now we ended up being classmates. And I'm telling you, not to be like, you know, I don't like competition or anything like that, but I'm just saying, like, I want to end this video by saying that be humble. Be humble. Like, you don't know. Like, one day you might be the one. It's a Jamaican artist. What's his name? Pop Gun or something like that. He has in one of his songs, he said, like, one of the hands that feeds you today might be the hand that something something. Basically, like, everything can shift, you know? So never look down on somebody, never be too proud, never be too, oh, I could never, that could never. Do you understand? Because the same person that you are looking down on might be the CEO, might be your manager, might be even higher than that, you know? So just keep that in mind. Just keep that in mind.